Hello, this is Rochelle Agatha, and this is the lecture on Chapter 8, Paying, Recording, and Reporting Payroll and Payroll Taxes, the conclusion of the payroll process. So this is the employer side of the payroll. In Chapter 7, you learned all about how to calculate payroll. Now you're going to talk about concluding the payroll process. The learning objectives are several in this chapter. We're going to learn how to do taxes, all the different payroll taxes, and year-end preparation of all the tax forms. Once again, in Chapter 7, we learned how to calculate gross earnings, employee withholding taxes, net pay, and employer taxes. And now we look at what we do with all that information and how we report it. Here's some of your familiar payroll accounts. Once again, don't forget that these PowerPoints are on Blackboard if you'd like to download them and print them out. So here's all the different T accounts for all the payroll accounts. Let's talk about recording payroll and payroll taxes. Here's a nice little slide that talks about what type of account each one of these is and the normal balance and what statement it goes on. So this is a good slide if you want to print it out. Let's talk about recording salary expense. Salary or wage expense, this is what you get from the employee's payroll register. So after you get all the employees' pay done, you're going to have your salary and wage expense, your salary and wage payable, and then your taxes. The salary payable is the net pay, and then there's all the taxes you withhold, which are payables, and then you have gross pay, which is what you record as salary on your books. So let's go to the next slide. So here's your hourly employee payroll register. So you can see we learned this in Chapter 7, all the different things that are happening by person. So you have your taxable earnings, and then you calculate your employer taxes and your employee taxes, and then you figure out where you're going to expense them. Many businesses separate out their salary expense into different categories. So depending on the type of business you are, you might have management expense, hourly expense, different categories. Like here they have business and cruise. It just depends on how your business wants to record salary expense. And here's the actual entry. Notice there's your two expenses for the amount that is the total of the gross. Then you have all of your deductions that you pulled out of their check, because it's your responsibility once you take it out of their check to remit it to the appropriate governmental entity. And so here is your net pay. So there's your salaries payable, which is your net pay. So this is a really good slide if you want to print this one out. This is just the side that goes with the employee's payroll. Then you have the different taxes that are the employer's responsibility. Notice that the employer's responsibility is a payroll tax expense. What you withheld out of the employee's check is not your expense. You're the pass-through entity that pays it to the government. Here's your expense and your payables. There's a payable until you actually remit the payment to the governments. Now let's talk about recording the payroll and the paying of the payroll taxes. We record the payment of payroll to the employees. It's wage payable and then cash. So here's when you actually make the payment. So there is a timing difference between when you calculate payroll and when you actually pay payroll. Depends on how you're doing it, but there could be you always put the amount into the payable, then release the payable against cash. Pay stubs show the gross earnings and all the deductions and net pay. Every company's pay stub looks different, but there are informations that you have to report to the employee. So here they see their regular, their overtime, their gross earnings, and all their deductions. Legally, you must show that if you're preparing payroll. Now you have an employer's quarterly federal tax return. Many companies outsource their payroll. They use companies like ADP or Paychecks, and this is done behind the scenes. But if you're preparing payroll, you need to understand what it is that you're responsible for. So every quarter there's a 941, and you must show the taxes withheld from the employee checks. And to do this, every employer must get a federal identification number, and you do that through an SS4 to obtain it, and then you use that identification number to report earnings. And you also, if you live in a state with state taxes, you must do the same for a state. Here's what an SS4 looks like. You can get it online. You can actually apply for this online. So any small business or any business can do this. It's like a social security number. Now we want to talk about recording employer taxes for FICA, OASDI, FUTA, SUTA. And hopefully you remember what all these little acronyms are from Chapter 7. And we're going to talk about workers' comp. FIT and FICA, first you determine when the FIT and FICA taxes need to be paid. And secondly, you report these on your Form 941. And you use a worksheet to complete. So remember, we're showing this as if you're doing it manually. Most people either have it outsourced or they do it within some kind of a computer program, but it's best to learn it so you can see what it looks like. FIT and FICA are transmitted to the Treasury Department using an electronic system called EFTPS. If you owe less than $2,500, it's quarterly. If you're a monthly depositor, you have to deposit taxes on the 15th day of every month. An employer who pays less than $50,000 of Form 941 taxes during a look-back period, and a look-back period is defined also by the government. Then you have semi-weekly depositors. Deposits taxes within 3 banking days. So if an employer pays more than $50,000 of taxes, then you are responsible to deposit that within 3 banking days. So it's very rigid when you get up into this bracket. Here's the journal entry. So remember, when you took all of the money out of everybody's checks, it was a payable. Now you're remitting it, and so you're releasing the payable and you're paying cash, and this is to record the payment. So it's like any payable, really. Don't let this complicate you too much. It's just a type of payable. Then employer's quarterly federal tax return, Form 941, you must do. It requires all employers to complete tax returns every quarter. Once again, if the taxes are less than $2,500 for a calendar year, you prepare a Form 944, and it's due January 31 of the following year. So it's much more lenient if you have like a really small business. If your taxes are more than $2,500, then you must do the 941 quarterly, and it is due every quarter. Many companies choose to outsource payroll for this reason, because you need a couple of people to do the payroll and a person who understands taxes, because it is a more complex topic. At the end of the year, someone prepares the 941 with the line-by-line instructions. There's programs you can do this online. You don't have to do it by hand anymore. And learning objective 4, paying FUTA, SUTA, and workers' comp, which are all kind of different taxes. FUTA tax, if the tax owed for the calendar year is less than $500, you pay the IRS by the end of January of the next year. So you get a long time to do this. If you owe more than $500, you pay it quarterly also. So you can start to see that they differentiate between a really, really small business and everybody else. In each case, here's your journal entry. You release your payable and you pay the cash. So it's a pretty simple journal entry. That's really not the complex piece of payroll. It's more the deadlines and following the rules that are in place. The Form 940 is the annual federal unemployment tax return. So you must do an annual return. You must file it by January 31 of the following year. If you've paid your taxes in full, then you have until February 10th. You report the amount of unemployment tax due for the year, and it's calculated on total wages, not on individual earnings. Here's what the form looks like. At the end of the calendar year, someone prepares the 940 following line-by-line instructions. So if you have outsourced your payroll, then your ADP or whoever is doing all of this for you, and they send you copies. If you pay SUTA tax, it's paid to the state government, typically by the end of the month following each calendar quarter, usually required to complete a state unemployment tax form. So here we're giving more of a general discussion because each state is different. California's state laws are very similar to the federal laws, so keep that in mind. If you do workers' comp, which every company has to have workers' comp, it's paid at the beginning of the year. It's more like a property or kind of insurance. It's will gradually be transferred from a prepaid into a workers' comp insurance. You pay it once at the start of the year, and you amortize it. Your prepaid, so you pay it all, put it in prepaid, and then you amortize it over each month. And then at the end of the year, you might owe more because your salary, your workers' comp insurance, is based on an estimate, and if your salary grows, then you're going to owe more at the end of the year. Now we talk about how to prepare all the year-end forms. A W-2 is prepared by the employer, and that's what you send each of your employees. Many of you probably have gotten W-2s in your lifetime. The copies provided to the employee, the IRS, any state or local government, Social Security Administration, and then for your company records. Here's what one looks like. Nowadays, these are pretty much all computerized from any company. Lots of times they're delivered electronically. A W-3, transmittal of income and tax statement. This is the sum of all of your W-2s. So once you're done, if you're hopefully using some kind of a program, a tax program, and like I said, if you outsource your payroll, they do this for you too. You want to make sure they do if you're going to outsource your payroll. And it's the sum of all of your W-2s, and it looks like a W-2. It's just the summary of them. So it just asks all the important information that comes from your payroll records. Okay, here's the summary. It's several summary. I'm just going to sum up this chapter for you, and don't forget you can download this PowerPoint off of Blackboard. The most important thing of the employer side is accuracy, timeliness, following the laws. So if you're going to do payroll and you're doing it all in-house, you need to really keep a good calendar and make sure that you understand all of the tax rules. If you work for a company that pays employees in multiple states, you have to follow all of those different state rules, and that's one of the more complex things about payroll. The journal entries themselves are very straightforward. So if you have any questions at all, send me an email, and once again, you can download these PowerPoints off of Blackboard. Thank you.